Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. Fascinating conversation today about housing and some of the challenges. But I wanted to end tonight, if I could, and address a couple of issues that have come up in this Mississauga mayoralty election in regards to this. Alvin Tedjo, one of the current candidates for mayor, councillor, because he didn't resign his council seat when he decided to run for mayor, has talked in every single debate about this fourplex strategy that he has, that the federal government has talked about. I think it's really problematic. I don't think our streets, our suburbs are made for fourplexes. Number one, I don't think it's going to be that impactful because I don't think that many people will do it. The history is that a very small percentage of people that take advantage of the fourplex. But if they did, I don't think our streets, our driveways are ready for the 4 times as many parking that we would have in cars that would need to park. Are we going to pave over every front yard to allow parking? Are we going to be adding more garages, or are we going to be allowing on-street parking absolutely everywhere that's not currently allowed? People haven't thought through this policy. We don't have transit that goes up and down a lot of the suburban streets. So these fourplexes may make sense in some places on major arterials where there is transit, where there is adequate parking, where there is adequate infrastructure. But for Alvin Tedjo to go around the city for debate after debate after debate and saying that he's going to have, fourplexes, basement apartments absolutely everywhere, and that's going to solve the housing crisis that we're currently in, I think is naive at best. And then he talks about putting density in right places. He actually voted against density at the Clarkson Go. So he's talking out of both sides of his mouth. And then, finally, and what really galls me the most is this organization, More Homes Mississauga, had a debate on Monday where they talked about, number one was an official debate. It wasn't official in any way, shape, or form. They talked about wanting to have a discussion of what were the solutions to the housing crisis. But they only invited 3 candidates and all of the progressive side of the spectrum. The executive director, go to her LinkedIn. She's a former Queen's Park Liberal staffer. She's very involved in the Liberal Party. This was a Liberal organization that was sponsoring a partisan debate and only invited a few, 3 councillors, only 2 showed up, and they were all on the progressive side of things. It wasn't a debate. A debate is when you invite everyone, or at least a couple of different political views to the table, and you discuss different views, not just a partisan advertisement for your own selected candidates. I just think this is wrong. If this was happening in a third world country, in a communist country, we would call it out for what it is. It's set up. It's a partisan organization that is saying that this is the only view that you're allowed to have. And the views, I don't think, are that great. And he talks about cutting red tape and regulation to speed up the approvals. He's been there for the last couple of years. What has he done? Nothing in that regard. So you know what, Councillor Tedjo, I think your housing plan is naive. And you're talking out of both sides of your mouth. And I don't think it's going to have the needed impact. My plan is, I've been in the development industry. I know how bureaucratic the city of Mississauga is and other cities are, and Mississauga is one of the worst. I've spoken to people that have, commented about how many committees they've got to go through, the complaints that they have about the process. We can improve the process, and it takes a business person to go in and find the efficiencies. And I've committed that I'm going to cut the review time by 50%. And I've said that we should be increasing the density around major transit areas. That's where the density should be, not in fourplexes on every suburban street in all of Mississauga, which I don't think people want. Our driveways can't afford it. We're not going to have the on-street parking that Mr. Tedjo is going to give you. It's going to be a disaster if people follow what he's suggesting. And I have said that we need to lower development fees on all units up to a certain amount, call it $500,000 or $400,000, because the development fees are a regressive tax on the young that want to get into homeownership, renters that want to get into ownership, and newcomers to our community. Those, I think, are the right policies, not fourplexes. I think this fourplex is one of those straw men to try to create a wedge issue when, number one, it's not going to have the desired impact. And number two, we do not have the appropriate driveways, the appropriate parking, the appropriate roadways, on-street parking abilities, transit, etc. And I don't think we want to live in a community where house after house after house on our suburban streets are all of a sudden a fourplex. In certain areas, yes, but not everywhere. So, Councillor Tejo, I agree. I don't agree with your housing plan. I think it's bad. Anyway, my point of view. Brian Crombie on the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. Thanks for joining in.